What kind of future awaits a generation born and raised with algorithms? That's the defining question for Generation Beta, the first generation of humans born into a world not just filled with artificial intelligence, but shaped by it. These kids today, they're not just digital natives, they're AI natives. They won't remember a time before machines could teach, speak, recommend, and sometimes decide for them. And that changes everything. I'm Bradley Sherman, a demographic strategist and author of The Super Age Decoding Our Demographic Destiny. And this is Population Next, a show that uncovers some of the biggest demographic trends impacting society today, including generational shifts and the impacts of automation on society. In today's episode, we're exploring how Generation Beta, those born starting this year in 2025 through the late 2030s, is engaging with technology. You see, they will grow up not just using AI as a tool, but in many cases as a co-pilot. And the ripple effects will touch just about every aspect of life, from education to labor to relationships, and yes, even identity. You see, each generation is defined in part with the technology it grows up with. Millennials, well, they had the personal computer. Gen Z, they got the internet. And Gen Alpha, they got social media. But Generation Beta, they're getting artificial intelligence and all of the disruption that comes with it. So let's take a critical future forward look at what they're inheriting and what we still have the power to shape as older generations. But as always, to see the future, we have to first understand the arc of the past. Millennials born in the 1980s and 1990s were the first to grow up with personal computers. They had Microsoft Paint, AOL, and dial-up internet, and yes, even Oregon Trail. They experienced the promise of technology alongside its limits. They were the first digital learners, but also the last to grow up largely offline. Gen Z, born roughly between 1997 and 2012, inherited broadband internet access, smartphones, and social media. Theirs is a life lived online. According to Pew Research, 95% of US teens, those Gen Alphas, now have access to a smartphone, and nearly half say they're online almost constantly. Their digital presence is often as real and sometimes more curated than their offline identity. Gen Alpha, born after 2013, are growing up with voice assistants, algorithmic recommendations, and AI-generated content. They're watching YouTube before they can read. By age 7, they've already interacted with more machine learning than previous generations did in adulthood. Now, enter Generation Beta, born between 2025 and it's expected to be 2039. AI will be like the air they breathe, always around them, always enveloping. Their first conversations might actually be with large language models, also known as LLMs. Their baby monitors may analyze vocal tones for signals of distress. Their textbooks, when they enter school, might be dynamic and generative and hyper-personalized for each individual student's needs. This generation won't adopt technology, it will shape them. So let's look at this from a couple of different angles, first starting with the upside. Because this new reality isn't all doom and gloom. There's some real potential here if we build the systems right. So I'd like to walk you through 4 opportunities that I see as prevailing during this time of generational change that comes alongside this technological shift. The first is personalized learning. Up until now, most of our learning has been one directional. We receive input from teachers and we produce output in of our learnings. In this new model, AI can adapt lessons in real time to meet the way students learn best. In fact, online platforms like Conmigo and Squirrel AI have shown a 30 to 40% improvements in student retention and comprehension by using artificial intelligence tools. So for Generation Beta, this won't be just experimental, it will become the norm. And this could become the most educated and most cognitively agile generation in human history. There's also predictive health and longevity wearables, which are becoming normalized. These things can help detect health issues before symptoms appear. AI can spot things like skin cancer, detect arrhythmias, and even diagnose Alzheimer's disease years before doctors can. Combined with advances in gene editing, Generation Beta might be the first generation to routinely live past 100 with their quality of life intact. They're also going to be experiencing adaptive work and economic fluidity. 85% of jobs that will exist in 2035, just a decade away, don't exist today, according to Dell Technologies. Gen Beta won't fear that, they'll expect that. Lifelong learning, real-time coaching, AI-driven career pivoting, this will be their norm, not their exception. And because of this, they'll have more opportunities, not less, to evolve with the pace of society. They'll also be designed with more inclusion in mind and, of course, accessibility. With ethical design, AI can largely remove barriers. There can be real-time translation, assistive speech tools, navigation for the blind. Generation Beta could inherit a world where disability no longer equals exclusion, and language, it's no longer a limitation. But let's be clear here, the future does carry real risks, and many of them are already here. There is a loneliness epidemic in the United States and around most advanced economies in the world today. In fact, the US Surgeon General calls loneliness a public health crisis. In the UK, they have a minister of loneliness in place. Nearly 1 in 2 adults report feeling isolated in this country. And among Gen Z, the most digital of our generations as adults, it's far worse, despite being the most connected generation in history. AI companies and companions, they might reduce human interaction, not enhance it. So the question always comes up, why talk to your friend when your AI always listens, never judges, and never interrupts? There's also the fear of the loss of core human communication skills. And we've seen this with Generation Z in the workplace, and we largely anticipate it with Generation Alpha too. Teens today spend 8.5 hours per day on screens. For Gen Beta, screen time might be replaced with immersive, AI augmented reality, but the disconnection might actually deepen. If we don't teach emotional literacy and face-to-face empathy, we may lose the glue that holds our communities together. And we're already starting to see some of that fray in the digital world. There's also this fear that these young people would be surveilled from birth. Smart cribs, educational tracking, biometric wearables all generate data. A child born in 25 could produce more personal data by age 5 than a millennial did by age 30. There are big questions like who owns that data? How is it used? And what happens when predictive algorithms shape identity before a child even knows them, before they can experiment and learn on their own? And yes, sometimes even make mistakes. There's also this fear of algorithmic identity shaping. Already, TikTok trends shape Gen Alpha's aesthetics, their behaviors, and even speech. The lingua franca among this generation translates at the speed of light. Now, imagine a world where your AI tutor nudges you towards certain careers, filters out controversial ideas, or tells you what kind of person you should become. When AI narrows your path, can you still say you chose it? Every technological leap brings a cultural consequence. The printing press, for example, gave us mass literacy, but it also gave us ideological warfare. The internet connected us worldwide, and it monetized our intention and frayed our social cohesion. Social media amplified voices, but it also created echo chambers where we were disconnected from diverse viewpoints. AI, it's that next seismic shift, but it won't just change how we live. It may change how we define life. If machines can replicate empathy, anticipate needs, and curate reality, how will Gen Beta learn what it means to be human? When everything is optimized, where do we learn resilience? When everything is personalized, how do we learn to share? We are the architects of the world Gen Beta will inherit, and the blueprints are being drawn right here and right now. We need to build ethical AI infrastructure. We need transparency, oversight, and accountability. This includes guardrails around bias, clear explainability, and firm limits on where AI belongs and where it doesn't. We need to teach emotional and civic intelligence. Schools must go far beyond tech fluency. We need curricula that focuses on empathy, collaboration, negotiation, and critical thinking, and above all, communication, because these are the survival skills of the future. We need to enact human-centered governance for these machines. We need laws for new realities, especially around child data, digital identity, and algorithmic influence. And we need to design systems that evolve as fast as the technology itself. Generation Beta won't just live in the future. They'll define it. They are the test case for what happens when humans grow up with machines that don't just assist, but anticipate. Not just answer, but influence. Not just serve, but shape. The question isn't whether they'll adapt. They will. The real question is, will we do our part to ensure they inherit a future worth adapting to? That's on us, and the clock has already started. I'm Bradley Sherman, and this is Population Next. If you found this episode interesting and insightful, please consider liking it or sharing it to help spread the word and help this channel grow. As always, thank you for joining.